Welcome into the Warchant.com report. Florida State has hired Kendal Briles. He'll take over the reins of the Gulf Coast offense, and I think this was a hire, obviously, that was not a well-kept secret, but something that people were wanting to desperately see happen sooner than it did, but it doesn't really matter. They got it done. Kendal Briles is here. He'll bring some guys along with him, and the thought being that obviously he's been successful on offense everywhere he's been. I don't think he's ever coached an offense that didn't average 34 points or more in a season. So you're talking about a guy with a track record of nothing but success, and I think a lot of Florida State fans are ready to have fun again. So this is a great hire for Florida State. When you're talking football, there's controversy when you're not talking football, but if it's just about the X's and O's, I think Kendal Briles is a good hire.
I think it's a great hire because, Florida State has, going back until after Mickey, when have they had like a great coordinator come in? I think this is the first guy with his pedigree and everything. You see, he seems to be a great coordinator. Walt Bell, he had a real small sample size. He seemed sharp, but it wasn't a guy that would really maybe fit in. Obviously, it didn't fit in real well. Now you got a guy, Jeff, that's done this at 3 different stops and been incredibly excited to go into FAU, and after the first couple games, that program, get them rolling, go right into Houston the next year, and they're, top 10. I think the last 4 or 5 years, he's had a top 10 offense every single year. Like you mentioned, never worse. I think it's 34.6 is the lowest point total he's ever had. What would we give for 34 points a game around here right now for anything like that? So he's proven time and time again he can not only go into a place, he can turn that offense around quickly. So, a tremendous hire. And then the recruiting aspect of it, too. This is a guy, 2-time recruiter of the year when he was at Baylor. So, he can go out and get the guys, too. And I've already mentioned before, he's opening up those paths to Texas right now. We're seeing some of those connections come through for Florida State. So this is a home run hit, at least on paper right now.
I think a lot of people, Corey, would want to get an opinion on how quickly you think that can happen, though. We think he'll be successful in due time, but people want to see this happen right away. And I wonder what can Kendal Briles do in year one while there's still some struggles on the offensive line.
Don't you think he's good for at least an extra touchdown a game?
I'd like to believe
at least. Yeah. So at that point, you're up to 28, 29 points a game, and then you're competing in these games. And I think the bigger topic is that Willie Taggart, after 1 year, said, you know what? I'm going to bring in a guy and hand him my offense. And that's what he did. And I think that's a really big deal moving forward in Willie Taggart's tenure here, but also in the short term. You get a guy, you give him the keys, you take your hands off, and you say, go score me points. Go get me a lot of yards and go score me points, because that is what Kendal Briles, like Gene said, has done everywhere. Everywhere. It's in his DNA. When you're on those Baylor teams were setting all kinds of records. And if you can get any semblance of that, and I think you can in year one. Yeah. They're not going to be scoring 46 points a game. I know at Houston last year, they led the nation in scoring over 40 points 10 different times. Over 30, 12 straight games. They're the only team in the country to do that. That's a great resume already. It speaks for itself. I don't know that you can come into the ACC at Florida State with what he's working with up front and expect to score 40 points a game. But you're not going to look like you did this past year. I think they're going to be better coached on that side of the ball, and they are going to be more explosive. They have to be.
Well, I think they will be, and I think there will be a modicum of improvement on the offensive line that will allow for these points. One thing to say, I really love it from a recruiting standpoint. Again, you mentioned it before, but he is a great recruiter, and I do think he'll obviously improve this offense in year one. And by year 2 and 3, if he's still here, that's a big if, and everybody will hold their breaths on that one, then you would think that Florida State's offense will really be humming around that time. So good hire for Florida State as they bring in Kendal Briles, who's also very familiar with Willie Taggart. Willie went and visited him. Everybody knows that backstory. To be sure, this will be Kendal Briles' offense, which is slightly different than what Willie did and what Willie adapted. So you're going to see some changes.
And I was going to ask you two real quick. There was a lot of hand-wringing when Sam Howell decommitted because he didn't know. He wanted Walt Bell was his guy. He wanted to come play for Walt Bell. Don't you think, and we don't know, we don't have the benefit of hindsight, that Florida State won this trade? Like, okay, you lost Walt Bell. Sorry, Walt, go have fun at UMass. But you got maybe the best offensive coordinator on the market,
because
and you lost the
expectation,
quarterback.
I know some fans build up these unrealistic expectations of recruiting. Did anybody think Sam Howell's going to come here and suddenly turn things around in year one? When does that happen at Fred? And this was not a Trevor Lawrence. He was a decent high school quarterback that ran that system. He wasn't going to come in year one and blow it up. But Briles can come in, like you said, Corey. I think he can make a significant improvement in year one just because of his system, in the fact that now he can get detailed oriented. Here's the thing we don't look at. I think Willie Taggart's biggest problem was he had too many things going on at once. To come into a new program, to try to run the offense, to try to deal with the boosters, the administration, everything else he had going on. the details were lost. And now you got a guy who can 100% dedicate himself to the offense. Taggart can go at other things. So, I mean, you're going to see, just from that perspective, you're going to have somebody who's going to be completely hands-on at one aspect is going to greatly improve things.
And it would also make sense that he wants his offensive line coach and he wants his other guys off the field as well, perhaps guys that you add to that coaching staff the way they do it at places like Alabama and Clemson. Till the next time, Kendal Briles, he's hired here at Florida State. It's a good hire for the Noles from an X's and O's standpoint. We'll talk more on the next Warchant.com report.